A woman asked if the other clerk was still hiding. The store was in its narrowest hour, the stretch after midnight when the fluorescents felt louder than customers ever were. I stood behind the counter with my elbows resting on the laminate, listening to the refrigerator's hum in uneven intervals. The sound rose and fell like breathing that didn't quite belong to anyone. Above me, the convex security mirrors watched everything at once. Aisles bending into themselves, corners that refused to stay still. According to the schedule taped inside the register drawer, I was alone until morning. The bell over the door rang. The woman stepped inside without hesitation, as if she already knew where the mat would slide under her feet. She wore a pale coat buttoned to the throat and carried no bag. Her hair was pulled back tightly, exposing a face that looked calm in a way that felt practiced. She didn't browse. She didn't glance at the aisles. She came straight to the counter and leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "Is the other clerk still hiding?" The question landed gently and stayed there. "I'm the only one on shift," I said. My voice sounded thin, too sharp against the quiet. She studied my face as if comparing it to something she remembered. Her eyes flicked briefly to the security mirror above the counter, then back to me. "That's what you're supposed to say," she replied. The refrigerators clicked. Somewhere behind the walls, something settled with a dull thump. "There's no one else here," I said. "Just me." She nodded, satisfied in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Good," she said. "Then he hasn't learned yet." I waited for her to explain. She didn't. Instead, she turned slightly and looked down aisle 4, the one that ended near the stockroom door. The fluorescent light above it flickered, not enough to draw attention, just enough to suggest uncertainty. "He hides when it's quiet," she said. "When the lights stop buzzing so much." "They never stop buzzing," I said. She smiled at that, thin and knowing. "They do," she said. "You just don't notice when they're gone." I glanced toward the stockroom. The door was shut, its metal surface dull and scuffed from years of boxes scraping past. The padlock hung where it always did. I checked it less than 10 minutes earlier. "You looking for someone?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm checking." "For what?" Her gaze drifted again, this time upward, tracking something in the convex mirror. I followed it instinctively. For a second, I thought I saw movement near the back, something pulling away from the shelf, too quick to resolve into shape. Then it was just boxes and labels again, warped by the curve of glass. "He used to stay behind the cigarettes," she said conversationally. "Back when the shelves were lower. Didn't like being seen from above." "I don't know who you're talking about," I said. "That's all right," she replied. "He doesn't like being known." The air felt colder, though the thermostat hadn't changed. I could feel it creeping along my wrists, up under my sleeves. "There's no one else working here," I repeated, more for myself than for her. "No one else scheduled. No one hiding." She leaned closer, lowering her voice until I had to strain to hear it. "He's not on the schedule," she said. "He just learned the gaps." Something scraped softly from the stockroom. Not a crash, just the sound of cardboard shifting, as if brushed by a careful hand. I didn't look away from her. "I'll check the back," I said. Her hand shot out and rested on the counter, palm down. The skin looked too pale under the lights. "No," she said. "If you go looking, he'll move." The refrigerators fell into sync, humming together in a slow, deliberate rhythm. I swallowed. "Move where?" She considered me again, eyes lingering on my mouth, my hands. "Somewhere warmer," she said. "Somewhere with a name." A faint sound came from the mirror above us. A whisper of motion, like fabric sliding across tile. I glanced up despite myself. In the mirror, the aisle behind me looked deeper than it should have. The end cap seemed farther away, the shadows pooled too thickly at the base of the shelves. For a moment, I thought I saw someone crouched low near the floor, limbs folded wrong, face turned toward the mirror rather than the aisle. I blinked. The space was empty. When I looked back down, the woman was watching my reflection in the register screen. not my face. "He's been trying on voices," she said. "That's how I noticed." "I think you should leave," I said. My throat felt tight, my words slow to form. "Soon," she replied. "Just one more thing." She reached into her coat and withdrew nothing at all, or rather, her fingers closed around air as if it had weight. "Tell him," she said, eyes still on the dark screen, "that hiding only works when there's someone to hide from." I felt it then. Not a hand, not a breath. A presence close behind me, careful not to touch, close enough that the warmth of it pressed against my back. The smell of dust and something faintly sweet filled my nose. In the convex mirror, my reflection stood alone. The woman straightened, satisfied. "He's getting better," she said. "I'll come back when he's finished." She turned and walked out. The bell rang. The store felt larger without her, stretched thin. The hum of the refrigerators slipped out of rhythm again, uneven and anxious. I stood very still. Behind me, something shifted its weight. In the mirror, a second figure leaned closer to the counter, studying my hands as if deciding how to use them. The slush machine dispensed something that smelled like seawater. I noticed it because the smell didn't belong. The store was in its usual late-night holding pattern. Lights humming, freezers exhaling cold and uneven breaths. The floor tacky under my shoes no matter how many times I mopped it. Outside, the parking lot sat empty and wet under a single buzzing street lamp, reflecting the glass front of the store back at itself. It was just after 1:30 a.m., the hour when even the regulars stopped coming by. I was alone behind the counter, flipping through a delivery invoice I'd already read twice, when the slush machine clicked. It wasn't the normal cycling sound, the low churn of frozen syrup being dragged around its chamber. This was sharper. A wet, hollow clack, followed by a faint gurgle. Then the smell hit. Not sugar, not artificial cherry or blue raspberry. Salt, cold and mineral. The sharp, unmistakable tang of seawater, like standing too close to a pier at night when the tide is high and the air tastes alive. I looked up slowly. The slush machine stood against the wall near the soda fountain, its plastic domes fogged over with condensation. The lights inside it glowed faintly, green and red, swirling lazily. Everything looked normal until I noticed the drip tray. Clear liquid pooled there, trembling slightly as if responding to something beneath the counter. I stepped out from behind the register. The freezers along the back wall hummed louder as I approached, their rhythm syncing up in a way that made my teeth ache. Each step stuck faintly to the floor, the tile cold even through my shoes. The smell intensified with proximity. Brine and iron. Old water that had never been meant to be frozen. I leaned in, careful not to touch the machine yet. The left chamber, normally cherry, had darkened. The color wasn't red anymore, not exactly. It was deeper, almost black at the center, thinning to a cloudy green near the edges. The surface rippled even though the auger wasn't turning. I hadn't refilled it. I knew that for a fact. I cleaned the machine at the start of my shift, drained both chambers completely. I remembered the empty plastic, the way it squeaked under the rag. I reached out and pressed the lever. The machine hesitated. Then it dispensed. What came out wasn't slush at first. It was liquid, thin and clear, splashing into the cup with a hollow sound. Steam, or something like it, rose faintly from the surface. The smell was stronger now, so sharp it made my eyes water. Then the texture changed. Ice formed in slow, uneven clumps, not crushed but layered, like frost building on the inside of a freezer. The liquid thickened, dark streaks threading through it, as if something were stirring from below. I let go of the lever. The machine didn't stop right away. It shuddered once, then cut off with a wet click. The cup was half full. I stood there, holding it, unsure why I hadn't dropped it yet. The cold bled through the paper, numbing my fingers. I could feel vibration through it, subtle but persistent, like a distant engine or surf pounding far below ground. I didn't bring it to my face. I didn't need to. The smell alone carried memory with it. Standing barefoot on wet sand as a kid, waves pulling back harder than expected. the sense that the water was heavier than it should be. I dumped the cup in the sink. The liquid didn't splash. It slid out in one cohesive mass, clinging to the sides of the basin before slipping down the drain. The smell lingered. I flushed the sink with hot water. The drain gurgled back at me. Behind me, one of the glass refrigerator doors reflected my movement a fraction too late. I turned quickly. Nothing. Just my own tired face, stretched and pale under fluorescent light. The bell over the door rang. I jumped. A regular had come in, Evan, one of the night walkers who bought energy drinks and scratch tickets and never made eye contact. He paused just inside the entrance, sniffed once, and frowned. "Smells like the ocean in here," he said. My stomach tightened. "Yeah, plumbing problem, maybe." He nodded slowly, unconvinced, and walked past me toward the drink coolers. As he passed the slush machine, he slowed. "That one working?" he asked, pointing at the left chamber. "No," I said too quickly. "Out of order." He leaned closer anyway, peering through the fogged plastic. "Ha," he murmured. "Used to look like that, you know?" I stared at him. "Used to? Back when this place was something else," he said vaguely. He grabbed a can from the cooler and shrugged. "Feels like it remembers." Before I could ask what he meant, he paid and left, the bell ringing behind him a little too softly. The store felt wrong after that. Not immediately, nothing dramatic, but the sounds warped subtly. The hum of the freezers bent in pitch, rising and falling like a tide chart. The fluorescent lights flickered in slow pulses, dimming in a way that made shadows stretch longer than they should. I unplugged the slush machine. The lights inside it stayed on. I checked the cord. It lay loose on the floor, prongs exposed and dead. The machine continued to churn, the darkened chamber rotating lazily, as if moved by something deeper than electricity. The smell spread. It seeped into the aisles, mixing with plastic and cleaner, overlaying everything with that cold, briny note. My tongue tasted salt no matter how many times I swallowed. From the back room, I heard a sound like water shifting in a confined space. I didn't go back there. I watched the reflections instead. In the glass doors, the store seemed deeper than it was. Aisles stretched longer, bending slightly inward. The slush machine's reflection lagged, its lights pulsing out of sync with the real one. At 2:47 a.m., the machine dispensed on its own. No cup beneath it, just a steady stream of dark slush pouring onto the drip tray, spilling onto the floor. The ice cracked as it hit the tile, spreading in branching patterns that looked uncomfortably organic. The smell became overwhelming. I gagged and backed away, slipping slightly on the wet floor. The slush crept outward, melting faster than frozen syrup ever should, leaving behind damp streaks that didn't dry. In the center of the puddle, something moved, not rising, not surfacing, pressing upward. I shut my eyes. When I opened them again, the slush had stopped flowing. The puddle lay still, just liquid now, slowly sinking into the grout between tiles. The machine was quiet. I stood there shaking, listening to my own breathing echo off the shelves. Then, very softly, from inside the machine, I heard water move. Not churn. Move. Like something adjusting itself in a space that was almost but not quite big enough. The smell eased, retreating back toward the machine, concentrating there. I realized with a sick certainty that it hadn't been leaking. It had been testing. At the end of my shift, I filled out the incident log with shaking hands. Machine malfunction. Strong odor. Recommend maintenance. I unplugged it again before I left. As I stepped outside, the air tasted flat and dead by comparison. The parking lot was still empty. The street lamp flickered. Through the glass, I could see the slush machine glowing faintly. The left chamber was empty now. The right chamber, blue raspberry, had darkened, its surface rippling slowly, patiently, as if waiting for someone to come back and press the lever. Behind me, somewhere far off, I thought I heard waves.